there is circumstantial evidence of collusion.
There is more than circumstantial evidence.
Well, I think there is direct evidence.
There is evidence that is not circumstantial.
There's abundant evidence of collusion.
Yes, there's ample evidence of collusion in plain sight.
According to these transcripts he's been hiding all this time, Schiff was hearing the exact opposite.
Just released interview transcripts embarrassing to Schiff because look at this. The former DNI under President Obama, James Clapper, quote, "I never saw any direct empirical evidence that the Trump campaign or someone in it was plotting, conspiring with the Russians."
2017, Samantha Power testified she was not in possession of any of the evidence. Susan Rice said there was no smoking evidence. Yates herself concluded no collusion at all.
They would leave the closed-door session, go on TV, and say something completely different.
The whole thing was orchestrated and set up within the FBI, Clapper, Brennan, and in the Oval Office meeting that day with President Obama.
This is a massive cover-up of the greatest scandal in American history.
Wow. Look at that. Obamagate is here.
Obamagate's here, and there may be a meat shortage, but there's plenty of crow to go around for these guys to eat, because I have never seen the media get so riled up about Obamagate trending on Twitter and saying that, you know, it's the latest conspiracy theory and stuff. People have been talking about this for 3.5 years, man, and it's just, I don't know if it's personally linked to Flynn, but now that Flynn can talk, speak freely, you know, it's changing a lot of things. And there's a lot of traces of Obama's fingerprints on just about everything that went along, where I think Comey was kind of trying to hide that. But it's unbelievably out there now. Like the dirty laundry has been dumped out, man. It's bad.
Well, they've been trying to railroad Trump for years now.
Yep.
So is this not going to go away? Somebody has to go to jail, as we talked about last time.
Absolutely. There's just too much of a paper trail. There's too many things that have been altered. You know, the Obama coming out and speaking about the rule of law. Are you kidding me? That guy, he's going to talk about the rule of law? I mean, this is going to probably not stop until they get back as far as like the Fast and the Furious, because there are people that were involved in that, and now it's turning out that those drug cartels and that are warring over there, they have U.S. weapons, man. So it's directly tied to him, and that's just one of the many things that are going to come to light. And I think they're going to have to pick a couple of charges that stick and go with it.
Yeah, this is going to be the biggest scandal in U.S. history.
Absolutely. And you know, like I was looking up some things today, like some charges that would stick in like the US code. Like they could charge him with it's 18 US code if anybody wants to look it up. That has to do with all of the crimes against the United States. And he's looking at conspiracy to impede interference by administrative employees, statements that are generally untrue, tampering with witnesses and informants, fraud and related activity with connection with electronic mail, because that's another thing that's coming out, that Hillary Clinton's email scandalous server was whitelisted onto his BlackBerry. Woo! It's bad, man. So, I mean, 20, 40, 60, 80, this is 100 years worth of U.S. code violations if they really want to throw the book at them.
Wow. I mean, this is the treason bunch right here. Let's take a look.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there they are, all these guys. I mean, even, you know, there were people that were talking about, I'm not sure that Mueller is really that bad, and I'm not sure about Rosenstein. Come on, man. Once you look at the big picture now, you really start to see that all these things that lead back, I mean, it was before Trump was even officially president, the dirt. And I mean, the DNC server, I stumbled upon this other thing, that CrowdStrike, right? This is a funny thing. I just happen to be digging. The CEO of CrowdStrike, right? This guy, his name was Sean Henry. He worked for Robert Mueller at the FBI. Of course they handled the whole thing.
Of course.
It makes sense now. Like everything is connected once you start digging like a little tiny bit.
Well, tell
These
people
guys
what
are all
CrowdStrike
friends.
is, so people don't know what that is.
Okay. All right. So when the DNC server, quote unquote, got hacked by Russians, well, that would be like a matter of national security. So when the NSA came up and said, okay, can we have the server? We'd really like to check this out. They said, oh, no, CrowdStrike's handling it. This super great cyber security company. And it's like, okay, that's odd. Like, it's a national security incident. And then it got filed as like a problem and it got squashed immediately in the FBI and the CIA. So Brennan and Comey and all these guys were like, yeah, it's fine. And when it got to Mueller, CrowdStrike and Mueller were like this because that guy, Sean Henry, worked with Mueller for like years. So, I mean, this is all starting to link back to a crazy soup of law breaking, money laundering, and cover-ups and lies.
It's all connected, and Joe Biden's part of it too, as well.
Absolutely, Joe Biden's deep. I mean, the Ukraine thing. I'm convinced now after this research today that Manafort had to go down to protect Biden, and Flynn had to go down to so they could forward the Trump process with the Russia thing because. With Manafort out there, Manafort knew Ukraine like the back of his hand. He actually knew people in government, out of government, every upside or downside. Right. So did Flynn. So they had to get rid of those guys, and they didn't care what they made up. It didn't have to be truthful. All they had to do in both things, they threatened Manafort's son-in-law, all right, and they literally threatened Flynn's son, who then I stumbled upon this other thing. So I was like, what do they have on Flynn's son? That's weird. Like, was he into drugs or what? Did he have like some kind of charge? No, he was in business with this guy named Bijan Kian, right? Weird name. He was an Iranian-born businessman, but he was educated in England, and he served on the Export-Import Bank of the United States. He was appointed by George Bush. Well, after it's all said and done, he goes into business with Mike Flynn's son and this guy, and they form this Flynn Intel group. And they're basically like a for hire, this happens a lot. People with security clearance that, can look into if you're a dignitary and you're going to come into the country. Well, are there rumors or something like that people want to kill you? And they pay a lot of money for that, for you to have access to that information. Because if you're like the sultan of somewhere and you got to fly into an airport, you hire Flynn's company. Flynn Intel Group does the research and says, no, you're pretty safe. Everybody here is cool with you. Or what Flynn's son used to do is say, no, you got to divert. You got to fly in through Dubai and then, go this way. That's what they did. And this guy who was the Iranian-born businessman, he had charges against him as well. So it was him and Flynn's son that had charges. Same thing. It was like, oh, you took money from this country without identifying yourself as a foreign agent and all this other stuff. Well, they dropped the charges in September of just this past year. So they dropped the charges on Bijan or whatever. So it was an appearance that they were going to prosecute Flynn's son and this guy Bijan. So it looked really bad. So when Flynn left out the fact that he may or may not have mentioned sanctions or something when he talked to Kislyak, that was like their sticking point. They're like, got him. Now they dropped all these charges. This guy's not going to jail. This guy Bijan Kijan, he's back to business. His son's free and clear. So now Flynn's going to start talking, man.
Oh yeah, he is, definitely.
Absolutely.
So it's all tied together. We have Sebastian Gorka on the radio show today.
Yeah,
he
he's
puts
great.
it all together today too as well. Just take a look.
Yeah.
January 5th is key because that is what ties everything to President Obama.
Yes.
There's zero plausible deniability that Obama was in up to his eyeballs in this entire saga.
Which you called a coup.
It is. It's a coup. I mean, there's no other way you can call it a soft coup in the sense that there weren't tanks rolling in the streets. The military wasn't taking over television and radio stations. No one was being, mowed down with machine guns.
But people were targeted for political purposes.
Absolutely. And there was an attempt to disrupt the lawful turnover of power from one party to the other. And the receiving party, President Trump and his administration, were actively gone after in a way to destabilize the administration to attack persons, the president himself personally, and attempt to attack and destroy him and all those around him. And so in this regard, on the 5th of January, there's a briefing in the Oval Office, quite a cast of characters. The president himself.
So President Obama?
Correct. The illustrious vice president.
Joe Biden?
Joe Biden is there.
Director CIA, John Brennan?
John Brennan. Clapper's sitting there.
Who's the Director of National Intelligence?
Correct. Susan Rice, the National Security Advisor at that point.
Director of FBI, Jim Comey?
Correct.
And then Sally Yates.
Correct.
Now, why is Sally Yates interesting?
Well, because at that point, she's going to pick up the ball and become the acting Attorney General.
Okay.
And so...
And she should know...
She purportedly is surprised by what Obama tells her.
So this is the big deal from last week. Last week's filings on General Flynn's case being unsubstantiated have in those documents an FBI memorandum in which Sally Yates is apparently shocked that there is an operation against Mike Flynn. And who's giving her the details of the operation?
President Obama.
President Obama knows the details.
Correct.
He's filling in the woman who is Deputy Attorney General of the United States.
Correct.
Smoking gun, am I wrong?
Right.
There you go.
Nailed it.
Smoking gun, definitely. So, just a little for our listeners, we are going to talk about the virus at the end of the show. So we have some virus news, by the way, but right now we're talking about Obamagate. So that is so bad.
It's bad for a lot of people that didn't think it was ever going to get to this point. I think I can't imagine how deep these people were in, because you could see how they were fighting. Like you saw when the first Russian collusion failure, when it was really starting to implode, and they started ramping up the Ukraine thing. And I mean, it was like they were willing to just keep going. It didn't matter. Truth didn't matter. Facts didn't matter. They would just bury people under paperwork. And it got to the point where they went through this season, I'll call it a season. Like I said today, I was doing a bunch of research, but like from February all the way on until from February like 2015. I mean, this stuff started as soon as Roger Stone started, like, he's got a big mouth. He was talking about Trump was thinking about running and started this whole thing like really early on. So like it gave them a chance to get some ducks in line. And as soon as he started, like, I want to say Trump was maybe a little naive in how to pick your surrounding team. And most presidents, when they come in, like, they get rid of the old stock, I'll call it. Like, you kind of clean house and you go, okay, I'm going to clean this desk off and put all my stuff on it. He kind of didn't do that. There was some holdovers that really burned him. And when they looked into, the people that he had in there, I mean, all they had to do was associate somebody with some kind of Russia or Ukrainian thing and then accuse them of something. And all they did was run the court of public opinion after that. And I think that's what Adam Schiff's job was, so to speak. Like, I'm not saying he has a hidden agenda, which he did. But he just went out in the court of public opinion and shredded people. This guy's accused of this, and this guy's accused of that, and Manafort is this, and Flynn is that, and no, it's so funny that John Podesta's brother was doing the same exact thing as Manafort, but Manafort's the one that goes down, and the Podestas are bulletproof. I mean, this was crazy,
Yeah, I mean, the Podestas were doing the same thing. They were Flynn and Manafort were doing.
Identical, like down to the money that was being exchanged, the bank accounts that they were using. Like Podesta's brother, Tony or whatever, he was in the Black Ledger too. That's what blew my mind. So when the Black Ledger, I mean, I know there's some people that may not know about the Black Ledger. So apparently the original Black Ledger in the Ukraine was burned in the 2014 revolution, but they somehow copied the Black Ledger, which was transactions of payments to operatives and stuff like that. And yes, Paul Manafort was in there because he didn't work for free. And guess who else was in there? Podesta.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But there's no charges for Podesta in the Black Ledger. Come on, man.
Of course not.
Come on.
So we have Donald Trump today talking about what's going on with Obamagate. Somebody asked him a question. Let's take a look and see what he said.
Ooh, yeah.
President, in one of your Mother's Day tweets, you appear to accuse President Obama of the biggest political crime in American history by far. Those were your words. What crime exactly are you accusing President Obama of committing, and do you believe the Justice Department should prosecute him?
Obamagate. It's been going on for a long time. It's been going on from before I even got elected, and it's a disgrace that it happened. And if you look at what's gone on, and if you look at now all of this information that's being released, and from what I understand, that's only the beginning. Some terrible things happened, and it should never be allowed to happen in our country again. And you'll be seeing what's going on over the coming weeks. I wish you'd write honestly about it, but unfortunately, you choose not to do so. Yeah, John, please.
What is the crime exactly that you're accusing him of?
You know what the crime is. The crime is very obvious to everybody. All you have to do is read the newspapers, except yours. John, please.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he is so funny. So
he's been really good at that lately, and the pressers that they try to pin him against the wall with these stupid questions that have nothing to do with anything. Right. He just literally is slapping the daylights out of him. I love it.
I do too, definitely. They try to get him on every subject for some reason. I don't know why.
Everything, and it's like, oh, somebody said something else and called the China virus again, and how do you? I mean, come on, man, it's getting old. Mm-hmm. It's really all dollars and cents, numbers. You know, you're trying to accomplish a task here. You got people screaming about testing. We're at like 9 million tests at this point, and climbing. And you got people still screaming that it's not enough, and yet there's people at testing sites that just sit there and twiddle their thumbs all day.
Right. Yeah, no one there.
No one there. Yeah. No one to test.
Right. So, I mean, we have tested more people than any other country in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So anyway, so what is going to happen? Of course, this is the end of the Obamagate series here. We're going to go to the virus next. But
yeah,
what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen in this coming weeks?
I think Durham is going to have to come up with some charges on this, because just by me as a civilian looking through the paperwork that's available to me, the altered 302 documents, and now there's a lost 302 document. That doesn't happen in the FBI. They don't lose 302s. And for somebody that doesn't know what a 302 is, it's a name for an official document that they interviewed somebody, and it's all the notes, it's everything that the interviewer said and everything that the person they asked said, like in writing in an official report. And it's something that goes along with every single step of when they want to charge someone, and they ask them questions and all that. There's a 302 if they question you and you saw a bank robbery and you weren't even involved. You're on a 302. Right. So the fact that they lost 302s, altered 302s, somebody's got to go down, and it's probably Comey.
All right. So just let anybody know, I mean, Durham is an investigator who's investigating all this.
Yeah.
He'll come out with a report pretty soon, probably in the next few months, probably.
I'm hoping. I mean, like you know, everybody's after the whole Hillary Clinton thing and the emails, and we all watched how those people, the deep staters, kind of covered for each other. I mean, Trump was elected for this purpose, and if he does come through on this, I mean, the election's locked up. I mean, I think he's playing politics and maybe drag this out closer to November, and maybe in September you see all these guys getting charged and indicted, and it's like, oh, you know what I mean? Like he came through on what he said, and it's like, bam, reelected.
That would be wonderful. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
All right, so on the virus news. So, of course, the virus has not went anywhere. Just in case people realize that you can go out and about, but it's more susceptible to get the virus now than it was when it first started. Yeah,
a couple new strains from what I hear.
Yes, and of course the children's strain too as well.
Yeah.
So, because we had a video of that last week. So let's look at the deaths. So we're at almost 84,000, 83,366.
Yeah.
10 million people almost tested. 10 million.
Yeah, I mean, and that's ramped up. Our last show, we were at 6. You know, I mean, it's 3 million in a week. I mean, that's impressive, man.
Very impressive. And then, so let's take a look at the states. There's
New York.
New York leading the pack.
Oh, yeah.
27,000 deaths. Now, they're saying these deaths are underreported, so which means we're, compared to last flu season, we're like, New York alone is 27,000 people more dead as far as on top of the other 27,000.
Right, like just dying of all other causes, New York should be at like 50-something thousand, based on like what their population.
Right. So, but what they're saying is they die from influenza or something like that, but it could be COVID.
Right.
Just so you be aware. So, anyway, so we'll see what goes on there. We'll keep on tracking that.
Yeah.
Fauci had a hearing today in the Senate. Yeah,
like a video hearing. He wasn't really there.
He wasn't there. That's right.
No.
But he was in the meeting with all the rest of the senators. Just take a look and see what he said.
Yeah.
Moving on to vaccines. There are at least 8 candidate COVID-19 vaccines in clinical development. The NIH has been collaborating with a number of pharmaceutical companies at various stages of development. I will describe one very briefly, which is not the only one, but one that we have been involved in heavily developing with Moderna. It's a messenger RNA platform. You might recall in this committee that in January of this year, I said that it would take about 1 year to 18 months if we were successful in developing a vaccine. The NIH trial moved very quickly. On January 10th, the sequence was known. On January the 11th, the Vaccine Research Center met to develop a plan. On the 14th of January, we officially started the vaccine development. 62 days later, we are now in phase 1 clinical trial with the 2 doses already fully enrolled. There will be animal safety. The phase 1 will directly go into phase 2-3 in late spring and early summer. And if we are successful, we hope to know that in the late fall and early winter. There are some important issues, however, in COVID-19 vaccine development. We have many candidates that hope to have multiple winners. In other words, it's multiple shots on goal. This will be important because this will be good for global availability if we have more than one successful candidate. We also, as the chairman mentioned, will be producing vaccine at risk, which means we'll be investigating considerable resources in developing doses even before we know any given candidate or candidates work.
All right, there we go, talking about Dr. Fauci about vaccines.
Yeah, I mean, what they're doing is actually kind of unprecedented too. Literally letting anybody who has an idea go after a way to attack this thing. And the clinical trial veil's been pulled back a little bit too because they're kind of rushing through this. But one thing that he brought up is that there's a durability factor, and it could be a shot that works for just one season too. Like the thing about every flu strain is that it's really like an ever-changing thing, and COVID seems to do that. So even if they get a vaccine for this upcoming flu season or the fall season or maybe the one after, it may be just like something that you have to continue to get and be like, I don't think it'll be a one-shot deal because most of these flu shots are not.
Right, yeah. I mean, you always get a flu shot and you also get a COVID shot 19 every year.
That's what I'm saying. You're gonna there'll probably be a slew of needles that you have to get every year after this.
Yeah.
Because there's multiple strains. I mean, once again, I'm doing a little research today, and now there's 4 or 5. I mean, the one in South Africa now doesn't look like the other one, so that's another strain that they didn't name yet. And it's like it's lethal, but only if you have like a certain blood type. And that's kind of like odd, but I guess that's a thing too. So I think we're finding out a little more about the virus as we go along, but I don't think we really have a shot at not hitting 250,000 deaths. That's just my prediction, because it's not going to stop. I think it'll go through the summer and on into the fall, and maybe resurge in the fall.
Right.
Like flus do.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're still going to have it. Hopefully the heat dies it down a little bit, and then and the fall is going to come back strong, I think. So we'll see.
Heat and UV.
Yeah. So as far yeah. So as far as the the today in Fauci in the hearing today, Rand Paul was talking to Fauci. Let's take a look and see what he said. Okay.
Yeah.
Will then tell you definitively if that's the case.
And I think that's important because, in all likelihood, is a good way of putting it, the vast majority of these people will have immunity. Instead of saying there is no evidence, the WHO kind of fed into this by saying no evidence of immunity. And in reality, there's every evidence stacking up. And in fact, a lot of the different studies have shown that it is very unlikely that you get it again in the short term. With regard to going back to school, one thing that was left out of that discussion is mortality. I mean, shouldn't we at least be discussing what the mortality of children is? This is for Dr. Fauci as well. The mortality between 0 and 18 in the New York data approaches 0. It's not going to be absolutely 0, but it almost approaches 0. Between 18 and 45, the mortality in New York was 10 out of 100,000. So really, we do need to be thinking about that. We need to observe with an open mind what went on in Sweden, where the kids kept going to school. The mortality per capita in Sweden is actually less than France, less than Italy, less than Spain, less than Belgium, less than the Netherlands, about the same as Switzerland. But basically, I don't think there's anybody arguing that what happened in Sweden is an unacceptable result. I think people are intrigued by it, and we should be. I don't think any of us are certain when we do all these modelings. There have been more people wrong with modeling than right. We're opening up a lot of economies around the U.S., and I hope that people who are predicting doom and gloom and saying, oh, we can't do this, there's going to be a surge, will admit that they were wrong if there isn't a surge, because I think that's what's going to happen. In rural states, we never really reached any sort of pandemic levels in Kentucky and other states. We have less deaths in Kentucky than we have in an average flu season. It's not to say this isn't deadly, but really outside of New England, we've had a relatively benign course for this virus nationwide. And I think the one-size-fits-all that we're going to have a national strategy and nobody's going to go to school is kind of ridiculous. We really ought to be doing it school district by school district, and the power needs to be dispersed because people make wrong predictions. And really the history of this, when we look back, will be of wrong prediction after wrong prediction after wrong prediction, starting with Ferguson in England. So I think we ought to have a little bit of humility in our belief that we know what's best for the economy. And as much as I respect you, Dr. Fauci, I don't think you're the end all. I don't think you're the one person that gets to make a decision. We can listen to your advice, but there are people on the other side saying there's not going to be a surge and that we can safely open the economy, and the facts will bear this out. But if we keep kids out of school for another year, what's going to happen is the poor and underprivileged kids who don't have a parent that's able to teach them at home are not going to learn for a full year. And I think we ought to look at the Swedish model, and we ought to look at letting our kids get back to school. I think it's a huge mistake if we don't. And I think we ought to look at the Swedish model, and we ought to look at letting our kids get back to school. I think it's a huge mistake if we don't open the schools in the fall. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I respond to that even though there are only 32 seconds left?
Yes, and you might make it clear whether or not you suggested that we shouldn't go back to school in the fall.
Well, first of all, Senator Paul, thank you for your comments. I have never made myself out to be the end-all and only voice in this. I'm a scientist, a physician, and a public health official. I give advice according to the best scientific evidence. There are a number of other people who come into that and give advice that are more related to the things that you spoke about the need to get the country back open again and economically. I don't give advice about economic things. I don't give advice about anything other than public health. So I wanted to respond to that. The second thing is that you use the word we should be humble about what we don't know. And I think that falls under the fact that we don't know everything about this virus. And we really better be very careful, particularly when it comes to children, because the more and more we learn, we're seeing things about what this virus can do that we didn't see from the studies in China or in Europe. For example, right now, children presenting with COVID-19 who actually have a very strange inflammatory syndrome, very similar to Kawasaki's syndrome. I think we better be careful if we are not cavalier in thinking that children are completely immune to the deleterious effects. So again, you're right in the numbers that children in general do much, much better than adults and the elderly, and particularly those with underlying conditions. But I am very careful and hopefully humble in knowing that I don't know everything about this disease, And that's why I'm very reserved.
There you go. So the main subject there was, again, I wanted to stress is that COVID-19 in children is changing, and it's affecting children more with this inflammation disease.
Yeah, and the inflammatory disease is so weird to affect their heart. I mean, at 5, 6, 7 years old, your heart's pretty strong, and to inflame it and give them like vegetative heart disorders and stuff like that, it's something that kids don't show the onset. Like, for example, like an older person who's struggling for air or like whatever, kids are kind of like, I feel funny, let me run around more. It's very different. It's hard enough to try to diagnose a kid. Ask any pediatrician. You talk to them how they're feeling. They don't know that their stomach's actually up here and these are their intestines and their liver's over here. I mean, the things that they don't know makes it really difficult to diagnose them. And they're also very germy. I mean, hand to mouth all day long. Even with masks, I'm out watching kids with masks in Home Depot, and they're digging under the mask, and it doesn't even matter that they have a mask because they're still touching their nose and their mouth. Right. It's really hard to isolate them from it.
Right. Or at least they're wearing a mask. I mean, I've been out and about, and people are not even wearing masks. They're all over the place.
Well, you're in a freedom state. You're down south of the Mason-Dixon line where the sun shines. It's time for business.
Oh yeah.
Up here, we're still at like 40, 50 degrees. It kind of still feels kind of wintry, and people are still in sweatshirts and heavy clothes. So I mean, these kids are wearing it. Some kids have really cool masks. It looks like Halloween. So
okay, cool. All right. Well, so as far as the virus is concerned, it's still out there. It's going to continue to grow. The deaths are going to continue to go up until they find a vaccine. That's not going anywhere. Now, there was a reported incident October 16th through the 21st at the Wuhan laboratory. An intelligence agency in the United States said something happened during that time frame.
Right.
So and that's where it was released.
I think that's the thing that makes it so damning on China, is that just admit it's an accident. Like, I know in another show I talked about Chernobyl, and it was a movie. I was a kid when it happened. I didn't really remember a lot of details about it, but it was a communist regime that needed help and was out of their element really fast. And instead of doing the right thing, they covered their asses and tried to, keep it quiet, and it just got really bad really fast. And that's what I think China did too. They knew they screwed up with a really powerful bio, I'll call it a thing, but you can't say that on certain places. You can't call it a bio thing. So anyway, I learned. Anyway, I won't use that word.
Yeah, our videos have been pulled down, a few of them actually.
Yes, so I will not call it I won't call it what I think it is, but I will say that it definitely was a mistake on their part not being forthcoming with the holy crap, this is spreading really fast, like you guys should know about it.
Right.
They didn't do it.
No, they didn't do it at all. So, well, we have another thing going on. I mean, the H666 bill, they're calling it the devil bill.
It's unbelievable. Like did they really wait to name this bill that? I mean, they're so weird, man. And it's all Democrats on there. If you look through it, it's all the usual suspects that are listed as the sponsors. I mean, I'm looking at we got Wasserman Schultz and what's his name, Humpty Dumpty's on there. I mean, Nadler, Humpty Dumpty, Van Drew is on there. I mean, these people, it's weird. They're in this place where they're printing money. I get that we have an emergency. I totally understand it. But they're printing money, and when you dive into like these bills, like I really like to read them all. The next one that they're coming out with, that they're going to vote on Friday, is like 1,800 pages. I'm going to have to, that's like a War and Peace novel. But anyway, this one, the thing that gets me is that they put right in line marker like 17, that the permissible use of funds and grant recipients can use these funds to hire, train, and compensate and pay the expenses of any individuals. That is a really broad stroke. I mean, they're getting billions of dollars, and you put people in charge of these, small community programs that are going to have access to this money. And all of a sudden, there's people getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for stuff that they barely did. We know how these government people work. And I mean, they're going to rob half of this money. It's just a blatant way to print money and steal it. It's awful. And they're using this crisis that's another thing. It's going to be looked at under the microscope as Donald Trump spent $8 trillion. He doubled Obama's, trillions that he spent, but it's really not Trump spending this money. The Congress has been printing money. I mean, they're not going to stop. The guys in the Senate were like, no, let's slow down a little bit. Let's trickle some money. And then they're like, nah, we're going trillions at a time, man. We're just throwing it around.
Are they going to chip us with this bill or what?
Oh, definitely. This is a bill that provides money to all different aspects of tracking the virus, right? So you're already chipped, so to speak. So if you go and you test positive, your phone becomes a beacon and you become like a little red dot on a map. And then all of a sudden it'll be, okay, go to the COVID app and find out, who's been near who. And it's just like China. And they're not asking permission, this bill is named 6666 for a reason, because this is the devil in the details. This is where they get their foot in the door to your permission is not needed. They'll follow you around, and this won't go away when the virus is gone. Once this technology, and I think everything works hand in hand. I'm sure the Space Force has some really cool satellite technology to track you down in a mountain hole if they want to. So this is something where it's the start of something bigger, and it's Big Brother on a whole nother level. And this virus is the way to get it in the door.
Well, Bobby Rush first introduced this bill. You know who Bobby Rush is, right?
Yeah.
So he's the only one that defeated Barack Obama in an election.
Yeah, I see him. He's the first one on the list.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, from Illinois.
Yep.
Member of the Black Panther. He's founded the Black Panthers in Illinois.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yep.
Cool.
1960s. Alrighty then. So there we go.
Yeah.
We got Bobby Rush, HR 666. Too many sixes though. I mean, it's supposed to be 666, right?
Now they threw an extra one in there to throw us off, like they're not truly evil with an evil agenda. Right. Just throw an extra digit on there and be okay.
Oh wow.
That and the funny thing is that was actually brought up by my favorite guy, Hank from Georgia. Mm-hmm. His idea for the COVID response was, well, why don't we just add zeros to everybody's account? And then like if you had 3,000, you would have 30,000. And then people were like, yeah, but what if you had 10 million? You know what I mean? Like you can't just arbitrarily add zeros to people's account. That's how out there people like him are. Like this is just printing somebody else's money. They don't care.
They don't care. I mean, somebody's going to pay for it sooner or later.
Exactly. This is kick the can 2029 and beyond. This is crazy.
It is crazy. So we have something else crazy going on. I mean, did you hear about the Iranian ship?
I heard there was something that went on, an explosion in the Gulf, and I honestly was driving down the road. I assumed it was us that destroyed an Iranian freighter or something.
No, Iran destroyed its own ship.
They shot their own naval ship.
Shot their own naval ship.
Nice.
Yeah, so way to go, Iran. So we do have one more video left before the show ends. We're going to show you what happens when Obamagate is over, when somebody is convicted.
Ah, yes.
So let's take a look at that.
I hope to see this.
There he is.
The perp walk.
Yeah. Trump's there too. Look at him.
Yeah. Durham's face doesn't change. Everybody else is smiling. Durham's he only has one face, I think. He
I think you're right.
Emotionless.
Oh, that's so funny. Look at that.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I posted a tweet today. I hope they tip off CNN and MSNBC when they do the pre-dawn raid on Obama's house, because I don't want to miss it. I might be sleeping. You know, I want to.
Maybe Fox News will be out there.
I hope so. I hope they tell all the just like Roger Stone, get all the news cameras out there, make sure the lighting's right, and then send those guys in.
3 o'clock in the morning.
Yep, kick the door down.
All right. Well, that's the show tonight. Hope you subscribe and.
Yes, like and subscribe.
Right, and we're on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Please come and see us again, and you have a wonderful night.
Yep, take care.